Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, looking out at the endless darkness of space. His ship had been traveling for 3 weeks now, far from Earth and the other human colonies. They were exploring new areas that no human had ever seen before. The Liberty was not a big ship compared to some others in the human fleet. It had only 50 crew members and was built for exploration, not fighting. Jake had been captain for 5 years, and he loved his job. There was nothing better than discovering new worlds and meeting new forms of life. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Lisa Carter from her position at the communication station. She was the best person Jake had ever worked with when it came to alien signals and languages. Her fingers moved quickly across her control panel as she tried to understand what she was hearing. Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of strange, Lisa?" "It's an alien transmission, sir, very powerful and coming from about 2 light years away. But it's encrypted and the encryption is unlike anything I've ever seen before." Lisa frowned as she studied the data on her screen. "This isn't from any species we know about." The captain felt a chill run down his spine. In all his years of exploration, first contact with unknown aliens was always dangerous. Some species were friendly, but others saw humans as threats or food. "Can you break the encryption?" Jake asked. "I'm trying, sir. Give me some time." Lisa's hands never stopped moving as she worked on the problem. Jake turned to his science officer. "Amy, run a full scan of the area where that signal is coming from. I want to know what's out there." Amy Foster nodded and began working at her station. She was young, but brilliant, and Jake trusted her completely. "Running scans now, Captain." The bridge became quiet except for the soft humming of the ship's computers. Jake could feel the tension in the air. His crew knew that alien contact could change everything for humanity. After 2 hours of work, Lisa suddenly sat up straight. "Captain, I've got it. I've broken through their encryption." "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The view screen filled with alien text and symbols, but Lisa had programmed the computer to translate everything into English. As Jake read the words, his blood turned cold. The message was from something called the Xanthari Empire. They were planning to attack human space with a massive fleet of warships. The aliens talked about humans like they were insects that needed to be stepped on. "Amy, what do your scans show?" Jake asked, his voice tight with worry. Amy's face was pale as she looked at her readings. "Captain, there are over 200 large ships in that system. Each one is huge, bigger than anything humans have ever built. Some of them are the size of small moons." Jake felt his heart sink. The human fleet had less than 50 warships total, and most of them were much smaller than what the Xanthari had. "Keep reading the message, Lisa. I need to know everything." Lisa continued translating the alien communications. The news got worse with each line. The Xanthari had conquered dozens of other worlds. They had weapons that could destroy entire cities from space. They thought humans were so weak that the war would be over in days. "Sir," said Ryan Bell from the navigation station, "if these aliens are planning to attack, we need to warn Earth immediately." Jake knew Ryan was right, but he also knew something else. The Liberty was the only human ship that knew about this threat. If they ran away now, they might miss the chance to gather important information that could save human lives. "Lisa, are there more messages? Can you find out when they plan to attack?" "I'm picking up more transmissions now, Captain. It looks like they're still preparing. They have ships coming from different parts of their empire to join the main fleet." Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Ryan, plot a course deeper into their territory. We need to get closer and find out everything we can about their plans." "Sir, that's very dangerous," Ryan said. "If they catch us, we won't survive." "If we don't get this information back to Earth, billions of humans won't survive," Jake replied. "We have to take the risk." Amy looked up from her station. "Captain, I've been studying their technology from the scanner readings. Their ships are very advanced, but I'm seeing some things that might be weaknesses." "What kind of weaknesses?" "Their shield systems seem to have gaps in certain energy frequencies, and their ships are so big that they probably can't move very fast or change direction quickly." Jake felt a small spark of hope. Maybe humanity had a chance after all, if they could use their smaller, faster ships against the giant alien vessels. Good work, Amy. Keep studying their technology. Lisa, keep monitoring their communications. Ryan, take us in slowly and carefully. Use the asteroid fields and gas clouds to hide us. The Liberty moved deeper into alien territory over the next several hours. The crew worked quietly, knowing that one mistake could mean death for all of them. Jake watched the scanner displays as more and more alien ships appeared on their screens. The Xanthari fleet was even larger than they had first thought. Jake counted over 250 warships, plus hundreds of smaller support vessels. It was the largest military force anyone had ever seen. "Captain," Lisa whispered, "I'm picking up their battle plans. They're going to attack the human colony at New Boston first, then move on to Earth itself." Jake's hands clenched into fists. New Boston was home to over 50 million people, including his own sister and her family. "How long do we have?" he asked. According to their schedule, they planned to begin the attack in 6 days. 6 days to warn humanity and prepare for the greatest battle in human history. Jake knew it wasn't enough time, but it was all they had. "Sir, we're being scanned," Amy suddenly announced. "One of their patrol ships has detected us." The bridge erupted into activity as alarms began to sound throughout the ship. The USS Liberty shook violently as alien energy beams struck its hull. Captain Jake Morrison held onto his command chair as sparks flew from damaged control panels around the bridge. "Return fire with everything we have," Jake shouted over the noise of the battle alarms. The Liberty's weapons were small compared to the massive Xanthari patrol ship that was attacking them, but the human crew fought with everything they had. Ryan Bell pushed the ship's engines to their maximum power, dodging between asteroids to avoid the worst of the enemy fire. "Hull breach on Deck 3, reported Amy Foster from her damaged science station. "We're losing atmosphere fast." "Seal it off," Jake ordered. "Lisa, did you get all the alien communications recorded?" "Yes, sir, everything is stored in the computer," Lisa Carter replied, her hands flying over her controls as she tried to keep the communications system working. The Liberty managed to escape after a fierce 20-minute battle, but the ship was badly damaged. 3 crew members were dead, and many more were injured. The hull had dozens of holes, and half the ship's systems were not working properly. "How long until we reach human space?" Jake asked Ryan. "At our current speed, 18 hours, sir, but I don't know if the engines will last that long." Jake looked around his damaged bridge and made a decision. "We'll make it. We have to. Billions of lives depend on getting this information to Earth." 18 hours later, the battered Liberty limped into the Sol system. The ship looked terrible, with black scorch marks covering its hull and emergency patches holding it together. But it was still flying, and more importantly, its crew was still alive. Jake immediately sent an emergency message to Earth Command. Within minutes, his communication screen lit up with the face of Admiral Tony Richards, the head of Sol Defense Command. "Jake, what happened to your ship?" Admiral Richards asked, looking shocked at the Liberty's condition. "Sir, we've discovered a massive alien fleet preparing to invade human space. I need to brief you immediately on what we found." Admiral Richards' expression became very serious. "Come to Earth Command headquarters as soon as you can dock. I'm calling an emergency meeting with all the senior military leaders." 2 hours later, Jake stood in the main briefing room at Earth Command. Around the large table sat the most important military leaders in human space. Admiral Richards, General Patricia Hayes, who commanded the Marine Corps, and Commander Steve Collins from the Engineering Division, all listened carefully as Jake explained what the Liberty had discovered. "The Xanthari Empire has over 250 warships," Jake said, showing the recordings Lisa had made of the alien fleet. "Each ship is larger than anything we've ever built. They plan to attack New Boston Colony first, then move on to Earth itself." General Hayes leaned forward. "How much time do we have?" "Less than 5 days now, ma'am. They could start moving their fleet at any time." The room became very quiet as everyone realized how terrible the situation was. Commander Collins was the first to speak. "Our entire fleet has only 47 warships. Even if we call back every ship from the outer colonies, we're outnumbered 5-1. "It's worse than that," Jake said. "Their ships are not just bigger than ours. According to our scans, they have much stronger weapons and better armor too." Admiral Richards rubbed his forehead. This is the worst military situation humanity has ever faced. But we can't just give up. Steve, what can your engineering teams do to help our ships fight better? Commander Collins thought for a moment. We could try to upgrade our weapon systems. The Liberty's science officer found some possible weaknesses in their shield technology. If we work day and night, we might be able to build new weapons that can hurt their ships. Do it, Admiral Richards ordered. Take whatever resources you need. Patricia, start preparing our ground forces for invasion. If they get past our fleet, we'll need to fight them on every world. General Hayes nodded. I'll mobilize every Marine unit we have. We'll also start training civilian volunteers. If the aliens want to conquer humanity, they'll have to fight for every street and every building. While the military leaders made their plans, Jake thought about something else that was very important. Sir, we need to start evacuating people from the frontier colonies. New Boston and the other outer worlds will be attacked first. Admiral Richards agreed. I'll contact Administrator Karen Wright. She's in charge of civilian evacuation procedures. We'll start moving people to the inner systems immediately. The next few days were the busiest in human history. On Earth and every other human world, people worked around the clock to prepare for war. Dr. Helen Murphy, the head of weapons development, led teams of scientists and engineers in building new plasma cannons and missile systems. The key is using our nuclear technology, Dr. Murphy explained to her team. The aliens think nuclear weapons are primitive, but that might be exactly what we need to get through their shields. Meanwhile, Administrator Karen Wright coordinated the largest evacuation in human history. Millions of people from the outer colonies packed onto transport ships, leaving their homes behind to escape the coming invasion. Where will we go? Asked one frightened colonist as she boarded a transport ship with her family. To Earth and the inner colonies, Karen replied gently. You'll be safe there, and someday, when this war is over, you'll be able to go home again. But even as humans prepared for war, long-range sensors brought terrible news. The Zenthari fleet was moving. The massive alien armada had left its staging area and was heading toward human space. Admiral Richards stood in the command center, watching the sensor displays that showed hundreds of red dots moving across the star map. Each dot represented an alien warship larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever faced. How long until they reach New Boston? He asked. 72 hours, sir, replied the sensor operator. Admiral Richards turned to his staff officers. Send the order to all our ships. Every human warship is to gather at the Titan Nebula. If we're going to make our stand, that's where we'll do it. As the evacuation ships fled toward the inner systems and the human fleet prepared for the greatest battle in their history, Jake Morrison looked out at the stars from the bridge of his repaired ship. The Liberty would fight again, alongside every other human vessel. Sir, Lisa Carter said quietly, do you think we can win? Jake was quiet for a long moment before answering. Lisa, humans have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that should have destroyed us. We've always found a way to keep going when things looked hopeless. I don't know if we can win this war, but I know we'll never stop fighting. The countdown to humanity's greatest test had begun. Admiral Tony Richards stood in the command center, watching as the last human warships arrived at the Titan Nebula. The nebula was a huge cloud of gas and dust that stretched across several star systems. Inside the nebula, electronic equipment did not work very well because of all the electromagnetic storms. All ships are in position, sir, reported his communications officer. 47 warships ready for battle. Tony looked at the tactical display. The human fleet looked very small compared to the Zenthari armada that was approaching. But this was exactly where he wanted to fight. In the nebula, the aliens would lose their biggest advantages. Send the message to Captain Morrison, Tony ordered. Begin Operation Steel Rain. Captain Jake Morrison received the order aboard his new ship, the USS Vengeance. After the Liberty was too damaged to fight, Jake had been given command of one of humanity's most powerful battleships. The Vengeance was fitted with the new plasma cannons that Dr. Helen Murphy's team had built. You heard the Admiral, Jake told his crew. We're going to make the aliens chase us into the nebula. Dan, are your tactical plans ready? Lieutenant Commander Dan Cooper nodded from the tactical station. Dan was the best military planner Jake had ever worked with. He had studied every piece of information about the Zenthari fleet and found ways to use their size against them. The alien ships are huge, sir. That makes them slow and hard to turn. Our ships are much smaller and faster. In the nebula, we can hit them and disappear before they can fight back. Jake smiled. Good. Let's show these aliens what happens when they mess with humans. The Vengeance led a squadron of 12 human ships out of the nebula to meet the approaching Zenthari fleet. When the aliens saw the small human force, they immediately began chasing them. War Commander Thektar stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, looking at the tiny human ships on his display screen. Each human ship was smaller than his flagship's smallest weapon. He could not understand why these weak creatures thought they could fight the mighty Zenthari Empire. Destroy them quickly, Thektar ordered his weapons officer. I want to finish this battle and move on to conquering their worlds. But the human ships were much faster than the Zenthari had expected. Every time the aliens fired their big weapons, the human ships had already moved to a different position. The small human fleet led the huge alien armada deeper and deeper into the Titan Nebula. Sir, our sensors are being affected by the electromagnetic storms, reported the Zenthari sensor operator. We're having trouble tracking the human ships. Thektar was getting angry. This was supposed to be an easy victory, but the humans kept running away instead of fighting properly. Keep chasing them. They cannot run forever. Deep inside the nebula, engineer specialist Maria Santos was working frantically on the hidden weapon stations. Over the past few days, human engineering teams had converted old mining platforms into giant railguns. These weapons could fire huge chunks of metal at incredible speeds. How much longer until the weapons are ready? Maria asked her team. 2 more hours, replied her assistant. But we only get one chance at this. If we miss, the aliens will know where we are. Maria wiped sweat from her forehead. The weapon stations were hidden throughout the nebula, disguised to look like ordinary asteroids. When the Zenthari fleet entered the trap, all the stations would fire at the same time. Meanwhile, fighter pilot Nick Thompson was preparing his squadron for the battle. Nick had been a civilian pilot before the war, flying cargo ships between the colonies. Now he commanded 24 fighters that had been built from converted civilian spacecraft. Remember, Nick told his pilots over the radio, we're not trying to destroy their big ships. We're going to hit their sensors and communication systems, make them blind and deaf. The fighters were hidden inside the nebula's gas clouds, waiting for the signal to attack. Each pilot knew they probably would not survive the battle, but they were ready to give their lives to protect humanity. On the other side of the nebula, Marine Colonel Frank Miller was getting his troops ready for a different kind of fighting. Frank's Marines were trained for boarding enemy ships and fighting hand-to-hand in tight spaces. The aliens are bigger and stronger than us, Frank told his Marines. But we're smarter and meaner. When we get on their ships, we'll show them what human soldiers can do. As the Zenthari fleet moved deeper into the nebula, their problems got worse. The electromagnetic storms made their advanced sensors almost useless. Their big ships kept bumping into asteroids because they could not see them coming. Captain Morrison continued to lead the alien fleet deeper into the trap. His tactical officer, Dan Cooper, was coordinating with all the other human ships, making sure they stayed just out of reach of the alien weapons. Sir, the aliens are getting frustrated, Dan reported. Their formation is breaking apart as they try to catch us. Perfect, Jake replied. Lisa, send the signal to Admiral Richards. Tell him the aliens are in position. Back at the command center, Admiral Richards received the message. He looked at the tactical display one more time. The Zenthari fleet was spread out across a huge area inside the nebula, exactly where the human weapons could do the most damage. All stations, this is Admiral Richards, he broadcast to every human ship and weapon platform. The aliens wanted a war. Let's give them one they'll never forget. All units fire at will. Throughout the Titan Nebula, hidden weapon stations came to life. Giant railguns that had been disguised as asteroids swung toward the alien ships. Fighters launched from hidden bases inside gas clouds. Human warships that had been hiding behind nebula formations suddenly appeared with their weapons blazing. War Commander Thektar felt his flagship shake as the first human weapons found their target. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Sir, we're under attack from all directions," his tactical officer reported in panic. "There are human weapons everywhere. This whole nebula is a trap." For the first time since the war began, Thektar felt fear. The humans were not running away anymore. They were fighting back with a fury that the Xanthari had never seen before. The greatest space battle in galactic history was about to begin. The Titan Nebula exploded with light and fire as the Battle of Titan Nebula began. Hidden railgun stations throughout the nebula fired their massive weapons at the same time. Huge chunks of metal, each the size of a building, flew through space, at incredible speeds toward the Xanthari fleet. War Commander Thektar watched in horror as 3 of his largest battleships were destroyed in the first few seconds of the attack. The metal projectiles punched right through their shields and armor like they were made of paper. "Return fire at everything," Thektar screamed at his weapons officers. "Destroy these human insects." But the Xanthari could not see their targets, clearly. The electromagnetic storms in the nebula made their sensors almost useless. They fired their powerful energy weapons in all directions, but most of their shots hit empty space or asteroids. Captain Jake Morrison smiled grimly as he watched the alien fleet panic. "Dan, coordinate our attack with the other ships. Hit them while they're confused." The USS Vengeance and the other human battleships appeared from behind gas clouds, their new plasma cannons blazing. The weapons that Dr. Helen Murphy had designed worked perfectly. The plasma bolts cut through alien shields and set their hull, armor on fire. Lieutenant Commander Dan Cooper was directing the attack from his tactical station. "Sir, the aliens are trying to form a defensive circle, but they're too big and slow. We can hit them from angles they can't defend." Fighter pilot Nick Thompson led his squadron into the heart of the alien fleet. His small fighters were almost impossible for the big Xanthari ships to hit. They flew between the massive alien vessels like angry bees, striking at sensor arrays and communication equipment. "Blue Squadron hit the command tower on that big ship," Nick radioed to his pilots. "Red Squadron, take out those weapon systems." The converted civilian spacecraft were not built for war, but the human pilots flew them with incredible skill. They used their knowledge of space flying to perform maneuvers that the aliens had never seen before. One of Nick's pilots, a young woman named Kelly who used to deliver mail between colonies, flew her fighter straight through the engine exhaust of a Xanthari cruiser. The move was so crazy and dangerous that the alien gunners never expected it. Kelly destroyed the ship's main engine before flying away unharmed. On the alien flagship, War Commander Thektar was getting reports of disaster from all his ship captains. "Sir, we've lost 15 ships already, and the battle has only been going for 10 minutes, his communications officer reported. "How is this possible?" Thektar demanded. "We have the biggest fleet in the galaxy. These humans should be dead by now." But the humans were far from dead. Marine Colonel Frank Miller and his boarding teams were getting ready for the most dangerous part of the battle. Small human transport ships flew through the chaos of the space battle, heading for damaged Xanthari vessels. "Remember your training," Frank told his Marines over the radio. "The aliens are bigger than us, but they've never fought anyone who fights back. Show them what human Marines can do." The transport ships used magnetic clamps to attach themselves to the hulls of alien ships. Frank's Marines cut through the hull armor with plasma torches and entered the enemy vessels. What they found inside shocked them. The Xanthari were huge, creatures twice as tall as humans and covered in thick, scaly skin, but they had never fought in close combat before. They were used to destroying their enemies from a distance with their big ship weapons. Frank and his Marines moved through the alien ships like ghosts, taking out critical systems and crew members. The Xanthari soldiers were strong, but they were slow and clumsy in the narrow corridors of their own ships. "These aliens don't know how to fight up close," Frank reported to his commanders. "They're used to being the biggest and strongest. They don't know what to do when someone fights dirty." Back in space, the battle was turning into a nightmare for the Xanthari. Their massive ships were being destroyed by weapons they could barely see. Captain Morrison's USS Vengeance engaged the alien flagship in a one-on-one duel that shook both ships. Chief Weapons Officer Paul Martinez coordinated the Vengeance's attack on the enemy flagship. "Sir, their shields are weakening. I'm targeting their main weapon systems." The Vengeance fired a full spread of nuclear missiles at the Xanthari flagship. The aliens had always thought nuclear weapons were primitive, but Dr. Murphy had been right. The nuclear explosions created electromagnetic pulses that overloaded the alien ship's electronic systems. War Commander Thektar felt his flagship shake, as explosion after explosion rocked the massive vessel. "Damage report," he ordered. "Sir, we've lost main power. Half our weapons are offline, and we have fires on 12 decks," his damage control officer reported. "The humans are doing things we never expected. On human worlds far from the battle, civilians were doing their part in the war effort." Bob Turner, a mechanic on the colony world of New Texas, had organized a group of volunteers to disrupt alien supply lines. Even though the main Xanthari fleet was trapped in the nebula, smaller alien ships were still trying to attack human colonies. "We may not be soldiers," Bob told his team as they prepared to sabotage an alien supply depot, "but we know how to fix things, and if we know how to fix them, we know how to break them too." Teacher Linda Clark had turned her school into a communication center, helping coordinate resistance activities across her planet. "The aliens think we'll just give up if they destroy our military," she told her volunteers. "They don't understand that every human is a soldier when our families are threatened." Back in the nebula, the battle was reaching its climax. The human fleet had destroyed over 30 Xanthari ships, but they had paid a heavy price. 22. Human warships had been destroyed and many others were badly damaged. Admiral Richards watched the battle from his command center, his heart heavy as he saw the names of destroyed ships appear on his display. Each ship represented hundreds of human lives lost. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're running low on ammunition. Our ships have been fighting for 6 hours straight." Richards looked at the tactical display. The human fleet still faced over 200 alien ships, even after all the damage they had caused. It seemed like humanity's brave fight was not going to be enough. Captain Morrison's ship was badly damaged. Half his crew were dead or wounded, and the Vengeance was leaking atmosphere from dozens of hull breaches. But Jake refused to give up. "Paul, how many missiles do we have left?" he asked his weapons officer. 12 nuclear missiles, sir. After that, we'll have to fight with our plasma cannons." Jake looked around his damaged bridge. His crew looked tired and scared, but he could see determination in their eyes. They had come this far, and they would not quit now. "Sir," Lisa Carter called from her communication station, "I'm picking up a message from Admiral Richards. He's ordering all ships to concentrate their fire on a single point in space." Jake frowned. "What's the Admiral planning?" The answer would determine whether humanity survived or died.